You need winners? Let the Sports Advisor show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a former sports reporter and contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the sports betting industry. Together, they are the Sports Advisors, your number one source for winners.
It's been a long time coming, but week one of the NFL season has finally arrived. Hi, everyone. Al DeMarco here, along with Steve Budin, and each and every Sunday, we're going to be here breaking down each and every one of your games from a point spread perspective. And Steve, I have always maintained that as a gambler, we have the advantage in the opening week of the season because it's the only time that we, as gamblers, are on an even keel with the odds makers because they don't know anything more about these teams than we do, especially now that we only have 3 meaningless preseason games to evaluate teams. And I want to throw it to you because as the guy that created the offshore sportsbook industry, a guy that has been a bookmaker for years, the son of a bookmaker as well, to get your perspective on that.
Well, it's an interesting topic because in essence, like the real marketplace, it is the gamblers that ultimately make the lines, right? And it's the gamblers that have no clue at this point which teams are better than the other teams. So as the gamblers don't have a clue, the lines aren't sharp from the gamblers betting into them. So you're absolutely right. In these first couple of weeks, you have some chances here, if you know more than other gamblers, to really take advantage of lines that are either cheap or expensive or as you view them. Because in essence, no one has really gotten a hang of what's going on yet. So those lines aren't what we call sharp yet.
And that's why I've always claimed that in the opening week of play, you'll find more favorites coming through. But ultimately, the odds makers do get their revenge because I find that in weeks 2 and 3, that's when the dogs come back and bite you in the ass because they are the ones that are barking. Of course, we are the guys that are going to break down these games for you. I, of course, come from a perspective of being a former sports writer, being in the media, a guy that was on the field in the locker rooms, but let's face it, even though I did that for almost a dozen years, I've been gambling since I've been a teenager. And as I said, Steve, you were the guy that actually set the line, the guy that created the offshore sports book betting industry.
That's right. 1994, went out to Panama and then Costa Rica and built what we know as today as the offshore online sports betting industry. And prior to that, I was onshore as a bookmaker, started at about 15 years old selling parlay cards. So to say that sports gambling is in my blood would be quite the understatement.
Now, and let's be totally upfront, we never talk about who we like before we start this show. Now, we're going to run down every single game, but we never discuss who we like, who we don't like, so let's jump right to it. First game on the docket on Sunday, Baltimore, 7-point favorite against the Jets on the road. Steve, I'll throw it to you because you, of course, a hometown New Yorker. Who do you like in this one?
I had to join Jets Anonymous many years ago because that's a very tough thing to grow up as a Jet fan. Look, on paper, Al, the Jets have improved significantly over last year. I mean, their defense will be better. I assume they'll be a little bit faster. They're going to give certain teams problems. But at that key position of quarterback, come on. There's no comparison. Lamar Jackson's going to be a factor that the Jets defense cannot and will not account for. He's going to rush for a ton of yards, and he's going to throw that aggressive, fast defense of the Jets off their game. Look, the Jets personnel has gotten much better, but system-wise, hard for me to believe anything other than what I've seen for decades now as a Jet fan from this organization. Baltimore, on the other hand, they're a winning franchise. They plan better. They scheme better. Let's face it, they are better. They're a full touchdown favorite here in this game, and I'm going to say I believe that's the right line. Now, do I think the Jets could sneak in for a backdoor cover? Yeah, I think they could, but I can't justify putting good money on a historically bad team and hope for a last-minute reprieve by way of some meaningless touchdown or field goal. I'm going to go with Baltimore here minus the points.
Yeah, listen, the Jets historically have always been lousy in openers, 1-5 straight up in their last 6, including 0-2 at home. And, until the Ravens lost, you may recall last year on Monday nights against the Raiders, they had won 5 straight openers. They come into this season healthier than they've been in a while. Of course, last year, their season decimated by injuries. I think the 2 most critical injuries they have to be concerned about right now is cornerback Marcus Peters, who's still recovering from that torn ACL, and their starting left tackle Ronnie Stanley, who's still coming back from an ankle injury. But talent-wise, you're right. There is no comparison between these 2 teams, and I find this number, as you do, of 7 extremely cheap. Especially when you compare the quarterback position for the 2 teams. And I think that John Harbaugh, after the disappointing finish to last season, wants to get his team off to the fast start this year. And this brings us to one of our favorite subjects, something that we preach all the time, but sometimes the choir doesn't necessarily listen. When that number crosses 3, 4, 6, 7, and even sometimes 10, what do we always say? You buy down that half point, and that's what we're going to recommend in this situation, because it's one of the few things that we can do as players, as gamblers, as handicappers, to actually put the odds a little more in our favor. But Steve, listen, we know that probably half the people watching this aren't going to heed our advice.
Well, they get scared of the extra juice, which, by the way, on 7 is much less than 3. But they have no problem betting an in-running game and laying 40 cents. That's no problem. They can bet at halftime or in the middle of the game and lay all this extra vig and not have any problem with it. But to take a position in the beginning of the game, they get all crazy about it. I don't know why, Al. We've been telling them for years, where you can take the advantage, you should take it.
It is the single most important thing as far as I'm concerned. It is the one factor that turns more losses into pushes, more pushes into wins. And, listen, I bet baseball as well. I've been doing that for, more years than I probably want to admit. But, if I told somebody in the middle of summer, hey, go ahead and bet the Astros minus $1.35, it's a gimme, they'd have no problem. But to lay those extra couple of pennies to go ahead and buy the half point, I'm not sure if I want to do that, blah, 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 blah. Hey, again, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make the dumb SOB sometimes drink. Hey, with that being said, let's move on to the next game. New Orleans, a 5.5 point favorite at Atlanta. One team on a quick rebuild, that being the Saints. The Falcons, of course, taking the more painful route, rebuilding totally from bottom up after they dispatched Matt Ryan over to Indianapolis and took in Marcus Mariota as their new quarterback. Steve, your thoughts here? The Falcons, a 5.5 point underdog. You grabbing the points here with Atlanta?
I mean, a lot of Saints bettors are worried, Al, because Sean Payton's no longer there, and he's been the head coach for so long. He stepped down in the offseason. But I think there's still plenty of continuity in New Orleans. You had the defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, took over. He assumes the role. Jameis Winston's back under center, coming off the ACL injury. He did lead them to a 5-2 start last season before he got hurt, so that's good news for them. I mean, if there's any continuity issues at all, I think it's with Atlanta. Like you mentioned, after 14 seasons, no more Matty Ryan at quarterback. He was traded away. Now it's going to be Marcus Mariota. That doesn't give me a lot of confidence as an Atlanta bettor. So I'm going to go with New Orleans here to get the job done on the road and win by a touchdown or more.
Sometimes I think bettors remember the last thing they saw, and they see that the Saints really, well, let's be honest, they sucked down the home stretch last year. And then they remember, oh my God, like you said, Sean Payton's not there. But what they fail to realize is, yes, they've got Jameis Winston back. And last year, the Saints didn't have Michael Thomas most of the year. But they also went out not only to have Thomas back, they supplemented the wide receiver group with the addition of Jarvis Landry, a strong draft pick out of Ohio State. They bolstered their secondary with the Honey Badger and Marcus May. This is a team that has a lot of talent, and they bolstered their talent. And that's what I mean. They are rebuilding on the fly. They are a contender, and this has been a one-sided series as well, with the Saints covering 6 of their last 7 in Atlanta, including 4 in a row straight up and against the spread. Overall, they've covered 4 of the last 5 in the series. And listen, this Falcons team, even with Matt Ryan last year, had failed to cover their last 7 games at home. I think this is a dirt cheap price. 5.5, that's one of those strange numbers. I mean, you're saying got to win by a touchdown. But I think they can do that easily. So I'm with you with New Orleans in this one. This is one of the most interesting games on the board, and I think it's one of the more difficult games on the board. Miami, a 3-point favorite at home against New England. You are there in Miami. I'm really interested to get your thoughts on this one.
They say Miami is a sunny place for shady people. But anyway, the Patriots, they didn't look so good this offseason. I mean, I'm not a Matt Patricia fan either at all. Meanwhile, the Dolphins pick up Tyreek Hill. That had to be the pickup of the year. That could be the missing link for a team that has kind of been improving over the last year or so in all the other areas. If Tua comes into his own and lives up to the hype, Miami could be a real threat in the East. At least that's what Dolphin fans are saying locally. Either way, I like Miami as a home team, especially when it's going to be over 100 degrees on the field. That favors the fish for sure. I'm going to lay the points here with the Fins.
Yeah, you brought up Matt Patricia, the former Lions coach, who's now like the co-offensive coordinator with Joe Judge, who, what the hell did he show you as the Giants head coach? I mean, you talk about two guys who got nothing out of their teams, the Lions and the Giants, respectively. I think this year Mac Jones is going to find that, boy, I really miss Josh McDaniels, he's probably saying to himself. That offense with the new system certainly didn't show you much during the joint practice sessions or during the 3 preseason games and Jones's limited action during the summer. And the wide receiver group is extremely weak for New England, but that seems to be a theme we talk about every single season, but you do have the Bill Belichick thing. I mean, it's kind of hard to say go against New England when the Patriots have won 15 of their last 18 openers straight up. I guess if you put a gun to my head, I'd have to go and agree with you to take Miami and buy down that half point off of 3. But this is a game that I often like to say, marquee games like this one, I'd rather watch as just a fan rather than bet. And this is one of them. So, yeah, I can see Miami, but not a game I'm particularly enthused about. In terms of storylines, however, this next game, you couldn't ask for a better one than this. Does Baker Mayfield get revenge against his old team? The Panthers' new starting quarterback at home, a 2.5-point favorite against the Cleveland Browns. And I don't think we have to go into the Browns' whole quarterback situation. Let's just say they weren't banking on having Jacoby as their starting QB, figuring it was going to be Deshaun, but that didn't work out.
Look, I think they got the wrong favorite in this game, Al. Carolina fans, they've got high hopes for the Panthers this year. I don't. They're coming off back-to-back 5-win seasons, and I just don't see it. I mean, I think Cleveland has the edge at nearly every position, so if Brissett doesn't do anything stupid, I think they win this game. So I'm going to take Cleveland here, plus the points. I think they're going to win outright.
Yeah, this is another one of those. I would classify this as my who cares game of the week. Seriously, because I don't give a damn about the game. I mean, other than that cute angle that I think if I was a reporter still, oh my God, I'd be writing about this forever. But from a gambling standpoint, who cares? You're absolutely right. I mean, you look at the team personnel, and I mean, the Browns just defensively have such an edge in this contest. And then you look at the Browns' ground game. I mean, they should be able to pound the ball. However, I will say this, Baker Mayfield does have the most dynamic player in this game on his side, and that's Christian McCaffrey. But, Christian McCaffrey, hot girlfriend, let's put that right out there, right off the bat, okay? But let's also say that he gets injured quicker than I can say the word injured. I mean, you never know with this guy. But, the Panthers, oh my gosh. I mean, just a horrible team over the past 2 years. Matt Rule basically coaching for his life. I'm ambivalent about this game. I actually lean a little toward Carolina because you never know with Baker Mayfield. But, yeah, not a game, not even worth talking about. Next game, however, very interesting. Cincinnati, 6.5-point favorite at home against Pittsburgh. The Bengals swept the season series a year ago. But here's where you always have to talk about the Super Bowl hangover. The Super Bowl loser, 8-13 straight up, 4-17 against the spread the past 21 years since Super Bowl 34 and their season opening game. You've got Joe Burrow, who didn't play at all in the preseason because he's recovering from that emergency appendectomy. But you've got the Bengals that went out. They improved their offensive line. You've got a Steelers team that don't have Roethlisberger anymore, and thank God, because I never have to hear about, hey, the Steelers have Big Ben. Oh, my God, did we hear that enough over the last 137 years?
Absolutely.
But you've got Mitch Trubisky, who, isn't it funny that Mitch Trubisky is being counted on to be the savior, at least until Kenny Pickett takes over in Pittsburgh, when he was basically run out of Chicago because he couldn't get the job done with the Bears. So I think there's a lot of interesting subplots in this game, but Bengals did get to the Super Bowl last year.
And I think that's what's fresh in gamblers' minds, and I think that's what's jacked this lineup way further than it needs to be. And I get it, no Big Ben, that has gamblers spooked. But let's face it, Big Ben has been on the decline for years, and while I'd much rather have him under center, I don't think the impact is going to be as big as gamblers think. Not so much as how it's moving this line. Steelers, they're a good underdog proposition, Al, 15-7 the last 22. I also think they may just catch a Joe Burrow here who isn't fully up to speed. No snaps this preseason. He had that appendix operation in August. I think this game comes down to defense, where Pittsburgh does have a little bit of an edge, and besides, Pittsburgh is the king of season openers unless they're facing Tom Brady. So I'm going to go with the black and gold here, plus the points.
You know, and Pittsburgh's also a great play as a dog. I mean, they've covered 15 of their last 22 under Mike Tomlin, getting the points. I mean, you know, historically, before last year, this has been an always close series. I mean, you know, so I agree with you. I think that the public has bet the Bengals up here in what really could be a 3 or 4 point game. Again, not one of my favorites on the board, but I think taking the Steelers plus the points is the way to go. But again, not particularly one of my favorite games. Another interesting contest between two second-year quarterbacks. You've got San Francisco, a 7-point favorite at Chicago. The two second-year QBs who have now taken over their teams, Trey Lance against Justin Fields. Kind of interesting because, you know, you're looking at the 49ers as a 7-point road chalk. I get it with the two second-year quarterbacks, but in terms of talent, there is no comparison between these two teams, starting from the head coach on down. The 49ers are the first-class team here.
Chicago, they kind of remind me of Burger King 3 years ago when they got through that whole redecorating phase. But at the end of the day, they were still Burger King, right? So, they undergo this complete overhaul. I mean, they're hoping to start heading in the right direction, talking about Chicago now. And after underachieving and kind of being mediocre forever, we'll have to see how that turns out. Where on the flip side, San Fran, at least in their minds and a lot of gamblers' minds too, they're competing for a shot at the Super Bowl this year. So I think 7 points is cheap. There's no December weather here to help the Bears. I think San Fran runs away with this one. I think it's a double-digit victory.
Yeah, and I think that not only do I like San Francisco here, as you do in this game, but listen, I think the 49ers pass rush will be able to get to Justin Fields. I think they're going to be able to run the ball at will against the Bears defense that was soft last year and is no better this year. And this also brings up something else. I look at this number, and I love teasers, and let's talk about teasers here for a second. When I look at this number, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, when I look at those numbers and I love a favorite, this is a number that I love to tease. I believe two-team teasers are the way to go. I don't believe in all these exotic teasers. I don't even want to be bothered with a 3-team teaser. I think anything more than a 2-team teaser, and in certain situations, they're sucker bets. But when I look at San Francisco -7, and I look at one other game on the board, Baltimore -7 against the New York Jets, and I'm putting them in a 2-team teaser, -6 or -7, and I say to myself, are the Ravens or the 49ers going to lose at virtual pick'em situations? No. That's the ideal teaser for me on this card for two teams that maybe I'm a little hesitant to play them straight up, but it's the way to go for me in a teaser. I'm interested in your thoughts as a teaser, because I'm sure, as a former bookmaker and a guy, again, that created the offshore sportsbook industry, I'm sure that you sat there counting your money when guys would come in and place all these exotic teasers and these foolish bets.
Well, look, Al, there are some guys that have a knack for betting teasers. Most people don't. And the problem is they do what we call in the gambling industry as they go fishing. So they find the one game that they like, that they love in a teaser, right? But they don't really have another game that they like in a teaser. So now they go fishing for a game to add to the one game that they like. And that in lies the problem of where they run into trouble with teasers, is in trying to find that second game. If you have two games on the board, like you mentioned, that you like in a teaser proposition, that's a completely different scenario than I really love this one game in a teaser. Now let me go find another game to put in with it. I think that's where gamblers run into problems, and that's where bookmakers get happy.
And I will also warn you out there listening or watching, you never double dip in a teaser. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're playing Baltimore and San Francisco in my advised teaser. You do not play the Ravens and the 49ers straight up. That's a double dip. You either play San Francisco and Baltimore separate sides, or you play them in the teaser. Playing them and double dipping, that's just foolish, because you either like them straight up or you're hedging your bet, putting them in the teaser. Double dipping is just a minor league rookie mistake. Trust me on that. And I win a lot of teasers, guys, because I like them. And I never make my teaser my primary play. I think Steve and I, we are in agreement that the way to win is you find that one game and you pound it, right?
We call it the surround and pound, right? Because the more games you bet on a weekend, the more chances that it's going to come out 50-50. So that, in one sense, protects you against major loss, but in another sense, almost eliminates the chance for major win. I'd much rather see you get one game and go to town on it. Now, the funniest thing we see, Al, is you all week long, you talk to everybody, you get your handicappers, you watch our show, you find that game that you like. It happens to be a 1 o'clock game, and it wins. And now in 15 minutes, you got to try to figure out how to parlay it at 4 o'clock. Something that took you all week to figure out how to win the 1 o'clock game. You want to recreate that in 15 minutes. Again, advantage bookmaker.
Yeah, exactly. It never ceases to amaze me over the years. I'll have a conversation with somebody and they'll say, well, what's that one game you absolutely love? And I'll tell them it's XYZ team. And they'll say, you love it? I'm telling you, it's a gift from God. God's spoken to me. This is the game. Bet your life on it. Something along those lines. And inevitably, they'll say, do you have a second game?
Who do I hook it up with?
I mean, parlays, sucker plays, end of story. Next game. Oh, God. Do we have to talk about these? Can't we just skip some of these games? No. No, actually, this game I like. Philadelphia -4 at Detroit. Listen, I think this is the hard knocks theory here comes into play. I think that teams that are featured on the HBO series often get a little too much respect in week number 1 from the odds makers. And I think that's what's happened here in the Lions. They had a strong preseason. There's a lot of excitement about Dan Campbell, the way the team finished last year. And listen, granted, I grew up in Philadelphia. I watched the Eagles a lot, and I'm looking at this line and I'm going, are you kidding me? The Eagles are only a 4-point favorite. They should be 6.5 in this game.
Well, they're looking to build off their playoff appearance last year, right? They blew this Lions team out last season. Not sure what makes this year much different than last year. The one word of caution is that Detroit was good against the spread in games that they lost last year, and they were winless. Heading into, I think it was December. So there's a reason why they call this team the Detroit Lie-Downs. And I always want to bet the better football team, Al. That's Philly here, minus the points.
Yeah, listen, Philadelphia went out. They rebuilt the entire wide receiver group, went out and got A.J. Brown from the Titans. So now, Jalen Hurts, who the jury is still out, he's got to prove himself as to whether or not he's really the quarterback of the future for Philadelphia. He's got Devontae Smith along with A.J. Brown, a great tight end, one of the best, if not the best offensive lines in the business. Now, did the Eagles have some warts? Sure. That secondary, you can still pass against it. Their pass rush was non-existent last year. But, when you think that the Eagles went into Detroit last year and won 44-6, And Hurts in that game, 9 for 14, 103 yards, 7 carries, 71 yards. The Eagles ran for 236 yards. And Miles Sanders, their number one back, didn't even play. That was their most lopsided win in nearly 40 years on the road. And that was on Halloween, and this might be another horror show because, again, I think the Eagles should be 6.5, 7. Love Philadelphia in that one, and it's not because I'm a lifelong Eagles fan. Okay, Indianapolis, -7 at Houston. We talked about it. Matt Ryan making his debut for the Colts. 5th straight year, the Colts are going to have a new starting quarterback.
Yeah, look, I mean, Houston 3-0 this preseason. Maybe that's creating a little bit of value in the line, which to me could have been as much as 10. I think Houston is terrible, Al. I think they're going to struggle to win 3 games the entire season. They played the Colts twice last season, failed to get the ball into the end zone in both of those games. Indy blew out the Texans in both of those games. And I can make an argument that Indy has actually improved this year. So this line of 7 is cheap to me. I would lay the points with the Colts, buy it down to 6.5, like you said earlier, and just bet your money on the Colts.
Now, technical trend handicappers will point out the obvious. The contrarians out there will love this. The Colts are 1-11 straight up and against the spread in their last 12 season openers with 8 consecutive losses on the field. Frank Reich's teams, since he took over the Colts, 0-4 straight up and against the spread in season openers. And again, he's had 4 different quarterbacks. But this is a Colts team, even with Carson Wentz last year at quarterback, won 31-3 and 31-0. And when you've got Matt Ryan, you've got Jonathan Taylor, you've got Michael Pittman. I mean, Matt Ryan didn't have any talent over the last couple of years in Atlanta like he has the talent surrounding him. And the Colts have a damn good defense. So I'm with you. If I'm betting this game, I'm taking the Colts -7. And speaking of our friend Carson Wentz, a guy who cost me a lot of money, come to think of it, in the regular season finale last year against Jacksonville for the Colts, which deservedly cost him his job in Indianapolis. He is taking over Washington, and Washington -3 at home against Jacksonville, who ironically is being coached by his old coach in Philadelphia, Doug Peterson, who is picking up the or shall we say, trying to pick the carcass of the Jaguars up off the road after Urban Meyer pretty much decimated that franchise. The Commanders, a 3-point favorite at home against the Jaguars.
The line looks cheap to me, Al. I mean, you know how sometimes as a gambler you can just look at a line and it doesn't seem right? We call it gambler's instinct, right? And in this business, you have to know whether to trust your instinct or simply write off that feeling deep inside your gut as gas and just take a Rolaids. I do think Carson Wentz gets off to a fast start. His receivers should have it easy versus a soft secondary. Jacksonville's made some improvements. They got a new head coach, you mentioned, Doug Peterson. But at the end of the day, they just don't stack up to this Washington team. 3 points at home is a bargain. Lay the points at home with Washington.
Absolutely. This is one of those games I talked at the outset of this program. The line isn't sharp. Nobody knows what to make of these two teams because you didn't see anything during the preseason. And listen, the Jaguars were 0-8 straight up on the road last year. We don't know what Peterson is going to do to this team. I think Jacksonville definitely will be better as the season progresses. I know Washington's defense was bad last year, and they're going to be minus Chase Young. But no ifs, ands, or buts. Ron Rivera's team is so much more talented. And Carson Wentz has his flaws. But in this spot, I'll more than gladly lay the 3 points. Next game, and this is going to be, of course, one of the games that everybody's going to be watching. Kansas City, -4.5 at Arizona. Chiefs seeking a 5th straight appearance in the AFC title game. But this is a Chiefs team that lost Tyreek Hill, brought in some replacements at wide receiver, Juju Smith-Schuster from Pittsburgh, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Say those 2 names quickly back to back. I dare you out there from the Packers. But Arizona with some key losses. DeAndre Hopkins suspended the first 6 games of the season. Christian Kirk left via free agency. They did go out and get Marquise Hollywood Brown from Baltimore, but they suffered a big loss on defense with Chandler Jones, who was really their only significant pass rusher.
Yeah, this will be one of the most watched games on the board. Great matchup, and you got to ask yourself which KC is going to show up and which one are you betting on. Fans will be quick to point out Kansas City always wins their openers, but gamblers who have suffered betting on Kansas City will remind them that KC is less than amazing versus the spread. I mean, they're 12-19 versus the number in their last 31. Meanwhile, Zona's 5-1, their last 6 as a dog. I'm going to reluctantly take Arizona here to cover the spread. And I say reluctantly because, Mahomes scares me. He's got the ability to be so explosive, but he just hasn't been himself for quite some time. So give me the Cards plus the points.
Yeah, listen, there's nothing wrong. And I always say this, there is nothing wrong with somebody in our business as a handicapper, as a gambler, going, I don't know which way to go. And I really don't. This is a game I can't wait to watch. But in my heart, I love Kansas City and I love Patrick Mahomes. But I'm not sure in this game which way to go. I mean, I looked at the total of 54 points. I thought, my God, that's kind of cheap because I know Arizona's defense isn't going to be any good. I mean, I could easily see this being a 33-30 game. And, hell, I can see it being 31-27 and we cash in there too. So I lean a little toward the over, but the side, I like Kansas City a little, but again, this is a game I'd much rather watch as a fan than play it.
Right, and the object, right, as a gambler, Al, is not to bet every game on the board. In fact, what makes you a professional gambler, who most of the time, gamblers in general, for their lifetime are going to be 50-50. So where the rubber meets the road and what separates, professional gamblers from novices is, are they able to properly rate their games? So do you come out with a game and win more of your 50-dime releases than your 10-dime releases? That's what makes you a professional. You can be 5-5, but if a majority of the 5 games you win are 50-dime plays and up, and a majority of the 5 games that you lose are 20-dime plays and down, you're going to have a bankroll to show at the end of the season, which is what we're all after. Because records, I always say, went out with the Beatles. Don't tell me what your handicapping record is. Tell me what your bankroll is.
And, throughout this program, you've been seeing here, scrolling at the bottom of the show. And if you haven't, if you're listening to us on the podcast, let us just remind you, at the site, the Sports Advisors, you can get my play, Steve's play, the best bets of every single one of the handicappers, absolutely free for 7 consecutive days, no strings attached, by getting the 7-day all access pass. Now, if you were to go buy it, it would cost you $449, but you get it for free. And the reason we do it is we've got nothing to fear. And it's the best way for you out there to get a sampling of the styles and the analysis and the picks of every one of the handicappers. Minimum, you're going to get 10 picks a day.
It's just so exciting because no other handicapping company has ever done anything like that. We remain the only one that ever gives away premium picks for a week straight, and it shows the confidence level that we have that at the end of the day, the consumer is going to love our product. We feel so strongly that the consumer is going to love our product that we're willing to give it away, not for one day when we might get lucky, not for 2 days, but for 7 days. It's an extremely great value, and it just shows, how we feel about our product and the customer's ability to love it.
Right, and understand, guys, there's no salesman, there's no hassles. You simply go to the site, you click on the button that says free 7-day all trial for the all access pass, and that's it. You put it in your shopping cart and you get it for free. And that's all you do. And every single day you come to the site, and usually by 2 o'clock Eastern time on the weekdays and by 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern time on weekends, all the handicappers' plays, backed by their full, insightful analysis, you get for free. And again, it's 7 days. Now, if you were to buy all the individual plays daily, it would be thousands of dollars, but we offer it a 7-day package. And again, you can see the price right next to it. It's $449. You get it for free, no strings attached. It's the all access pass. You will get my best bet, Steve's best bet, and the best bets of all of the handicappers There is nothing else comparable. We've been doing it for years over at the sportsadvisors.com. Okay, Steve, next game. This one is one of the best ones on the board. Chargers -3.5 at home against Las Vegas. Raiders, one extra game in the preseason because they played in the Hall of Fame game. Josh McDaniels' team going a perfect 4-0. Now, that doesn't mean a hell of a lot, because if not, the Ravens would have won every single Super Bowl over the past 7 years, since they haven't lost a damn preseason game in forever. But Chargers, on the other hand, once again, for the second straight season, didn't play any of their starters pretty much the entire preseason. This is a revenge game, though, for the Chargers. They lost their regular season finale last year in overtime to the Raiders, and that cost them a possibility of making the postseason.
Almost 70 points scored the last time these two faced off. I mean, I see both of these offenses coming in at full capacity again in this one. Maybe a small advantage to the Chargers here with the point spread, but I think the real play here, Al, is the over. We haven't talked about any totals so far today. I think this is the one. Neither of these defenses really impressed me. Should be a scoring fest. I'm going to go over the posted total here.
It's amazing. As I said at the outset of the program, we don't talk about picks or anything. We just agree we're going to run down every single game in Vegas order. This is the one game that I absolutely love the total. I, on the other hand, lean a little toward the Raiders plus the points. Derek Carr, Devontae Adams. I like their offense in this game. I think they can match the Chargers point for point. But as I'm sitting there, I immediately looked at the total. I'm going, 52 points. How? How is this 52 points when the Kansas City-Arizona total is 54 points? I don't get it. To me, Chargers-Raiders total should be at least 56, 57 points. This is a bargain. This has overwritten all over it, no pun intended, because the Chargers couldn't stop anybody last year. And I'm telling you, even though the Raiders are better offensively, their defense is not that much better. So I love this game going over, and I don't care who the hell wins. And that's the type of game, by the way, I love when I'm betting a total. I can just sit there and go, score. It's like having an electric football game when I'm a kid. Just keep running up those points. Interesting, the next game here. Green Bay -1.5 at Minnesota. You know, the Packers are one of these teams, like so many others. Aaron Rodgers doesn't play any of the preseason games. It certainly backfired for them last year when they lost their opener at New Orleans 38-3. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers returned, and they ran off that incredible long winning streak. But no more Devontae Adams. No more, God, I hate this guy's name, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. A bunch of easy again for you to say. A bunch of inexperienced receivers. Minnesota, new head coach in Kevin O'Connell, who's trying to maximize what they can get out of Kirk Cousins, who they doubled down on, and extending his contract. But I think the key here for the Vikings, Dalvin Cook is healthy. This is a tough game to handicap.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota could be a good play, especially if you believe Kirk Cousins is healthy and ready to go. Aaron Rodgers will be in the saddle for Green Bay. You know, lots of controversy with his comments, but Rodgers, you know, continues to not let his comments get in the way of how he performs on the field. Green Bay has beat Minnie straight up 4 out of 6. The Vikings are 17-6 against the spread as a home dog over the last decade, 4-2, last 6 with Cousins under center. But the line doesn't really make them much of an underdog. It's a virtual pick'em, so I don't buy into that stat that much. I do buy into the fact that there are lots of new pieces for the Packers, and it's going to take them some time to gel. I think that's reasonable. I think Minnie at home probably is the smart play here. I'm going to go with the Vikings plus the points.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I like the Vikings here. I think it's going to be an upset, even though the line doesn't indicate it's going to be an upset because it's a 1.5 point spread. But I just think the Vikings are going to get the Packers here, and Green Bay, because they paid Aaron Rodgers all the big money. They had some salary cap restraints, and because they let his wide receiver group kind of go to nothing. I mean, when Randall Cobb might be your most experienced and best wide receiver, that's pretty bad. This next game, Tennessee -5.5 points against the New York Giants. I read something in the New York Post, and they were touting that the Giants, the top-ranked offense in the preseason, and I'm going, so what? Who cares? I mean, this was a team that was number 31 in total offense and number 31 in their passing offense last year. A team that has averaged a league low 16.3 points the past 2 years, which is why Joe Judge is now the co-offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots, why they went out and got Brian Double from Buffalo, because he was the quarterback whisperer with Josh Allen to come in and see what he could do with Daniel Jones. And granted, Saquon Barkley is now healthy, and they went out and they bolstered their offensive line for, I think, the 18th season in a row. But I don't know if that's enough to make the Giants suddenly formidable on offense.
It's a new year and a new coach for the Giants. I mean, I think that's a good thing. Almost anyone would have been an improvement as the Giants head coach. So, new coach, but same old otherwise. The Giants are going to go with Daniel Jones again at quarterback and Barkley at running back, and everyone knows it's now or never for them, and my bet is firmly on never. I much prefer Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry. There is no comparison there. In the end, this is a good team versus a bad team. A Tennessee team that's looking to go further into the playoffs than they have the last 2 seasons, while the Giants team tries to overachieve their way to 500. I'm betting on Tennessee and what looks like a blowout. Lay the points in this one.
Okay. Now, I will say that, this is a Tennessee team that last year came out of the preseason, didn't really play a lot of the regulars, and laid a big egg in week 1, losing at home to Arizona 38-13. So I think that Mike Vrabel, who is 9-12-1 against the spread as a home favorite during his tenure in Nashville, I think that it certainly would behoove him to come out and have his team ready for this game. So I agree with you. I think we're going to see a big dose of Derrick Henry in this game. But I do worry about the Titans from this aspect. Ryan Tannehill's there. He no longer has A.J. Brown because they let him go to the Eagles. Julio Jones, who was on the downside of his career, is no longer there either. So your top wide receivers for the Titans are Robert Woods, who's coming back from a knee injury, the ex-Ram, and the rookie out of Arkansas, Treylon Burks. Not exactly, awe-inspiring. I actually, if I had to bet the game, and I hate the game, I actually like the Giants in this one, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this number go up a little bit, but I actually like the Giants, which means absolute $4, in that opinion, will get you something at Starbucks, I'm sure. But that's it. Okay, this is the game I think a lot of people are going to be interested in, and I think Tampa Bay -2.5 at Dallas. People are going to be expecting another shootout, a repeat of last year's game that the Bucs jumped out to the big lead, and then they won it on the last-second field goal, 31-29 at home against Dallas. But Steve, I'm just telling you up front before I get to my opinion, I just don't think it's going to be a repeat of last year's game.
Well, Al, there's 2 people I hate betting against, and that's Tom Brady and you. So, not necessarily in that order. However, when teams can get to Brady with a strong rush, he's significantly less effective. We've seen that throughout his career. That being said, the Bucs' offensive line is more banged up than Rihanna was after dating Chris Brown. Meanwhile, Tom's 45 now, and you have to ask yourself, can he take a hit? And you add to that the no Gronk factor. And is there room to consider a play on Dallas here in the home opener? I think there is. And while most gamblers are going to bet the over in this one and figure both quarterbacks, like you said, they're going to think they're going to light it up like they did last September, I don't think so either. And I think Dallas is the right play here, plus the points at home.
I agree. I think the public is going to be on the wrong side of this game. I think they're going to expect the Buccaneers to be the same team we saw a year ago. And the only thing with the Buccaneers that they have any similarity between them and a year ago is they're wearing the same uniforms. Tom Brady is a year older. He's going to find life is a lot tougher with an offensive line that's already been shredded by injuries, minus his safety valve, and Gronk no longer there, as you pointed out. And, Tampa, even with all their talent a year ago, they were only 3-6 against the spread on the road. The wide receiver core has been, decimated either by injury or guys that are no longer there. The Cowboys, yes, they have injuries too along their offensive line. I mean, it gets pretty bad when you got to go out and sign Jason Peters, who at 40 years old, they just signed here a couple of days ago, to come in and start working himself into shape because you don't have a lot of backups along your offensive line. But I still like the Cowboys in revenge here. I think the wrong side is favored here. I agree with you. I think it could be a low-scoring game, but I like Dallas to win the game outright in this particular spot. So that's it. That's your Week 1 Sunday rundown. Let us remind you again, Steve, you can pitch it this time. Go ahead, the all-access pass. I mean, you're foolish if you don't get it because you've got nothing to lose other than all of our plays for free.
And that's what you have to ask yourself. What exactly do you have to lose? And when have you seen a handicapping company willing to let you go underneath Disney World, see how things work? Because we're so confident that in the end, you will love what you see. Pick up 7 days of every single handicapper, absolutely free. It's called the All Access Pass. It's on thesportsadvisors.com. Go and get it now.
And I think, Steve, we also should point out that our plays are only available online. When you get those plays via the All Access Pass for 7 straight days, there is nothing better. I don't have like a super 25,000 star release set I'm holding out because there's no 900 number. There is no 800 service. What you see on the site and what you get via that 7-day All Access Pass, that's it. I mean, we have pulled back the curtain. All our plays are exclusively available online at the Sports Advisors. There is nothing held back. And that's the thing that I think confuses most gamblers. They will go to other sites and they will see guys have a silver play, a gold play, a double platinum play, and a super exclusive play. And of course, they're all marketed under a zillion different tiers and a zillion different price points. And believe me, guys, I created the online version of the internet sites that you see today because I was in this business when people were selling picks for $2, $3 in the 976 industry back in the early 90s, then in the 900 number business industry. I have seen it all. I know all the scandicappers and their gimmicks out there, all the charlatans. There's even people out there still, Steve, in that 800 number industry, the dinosaurs, where when they tell you something is absolutely free, well, hell, if they tell you the sky is blue, you better look up twice because it may not be true. But what you see is, like you said, is what you get. Everything of ours is truly free, and it's all done online. There is no salesperson. There is no hassle.
And the reason why we went into business together was to crush those 1980 and 1990 stereotypes of the handicapping industry, to bring transparency, to bring trust, to bring actual handicappers, journalists, people whose opinions we respected. And in return, we've been the leader in this industry for 20 plus years. There's a good reason for that.
So again, guys, check it out, the All Access Pass at thesportsadvisors.com. You get it for free. It's a $449 value. You get it absolutely free, 7-day free All Access Pass. For Steve Budin, I'm Al DeMarco, and we will catch you again right here next week with week number 2 of all of your NFL selections. Good luck, everybody.
Bye, everyone.